Alrighty, here we go. So obviously I've done probably hundreds of videos talking about mud balkanization. I just don't think it's realistic right now, but the conditions are there. The conditions are there, they are growing, and there is a potential that is growing. I'll put it that way. But my LARPy ideas probably won't take place. Like I say, I'm gonna have a pretty loose idea where it's just like, I just think whoever is going to be strong enough is going to take over various parts of the country. Now, like I say, unless you have a deep understanding of where you live and where, what other people believe in these areas, then it's kind of difficult to say what ideology is going to take over if balkanization does happen. But anywho, the real question, though, is how did the U.S. end up here? And what are the mainstream solutions? What are the mainstream solutions? Well, I would say the U.S. ended up here because of wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And hell, you could even stretch it to Vietnam. And these wars benefited nobody. These wars benefited only the rich. It didn't benefit the working class in any way whatsoever. It didn't help the middle class whatsoever. World War II, at least, and the Korean War to a different degree, I imagine, at least you got a GI Bill out of it. I don't know, people say, but the GI Bill still exists and veterans can still... I know. But the thing is, though, is different standards, and you have kind of a very lackluster system that really hasn't updated itself, with the GI Bill. But anyway, I would say is that people can push and talk about, U.S. interventionism, this and that. But the thing is, though, does it benefit the people? That's the whole idea of it. That's the whole idea about even with the Roman Empire, right? Where at least the Roman Empire would bring these fancy animals and everything else like that and have them fight in the Colosseum and all that, right? It's the whole idea of it. They would bring these animals from all over the empire so that they can at least see, oh, look how great we are. The United States doesn't do that. Now, I'm not going to say, oh, the United States should be like the Roman Empire. We should just bring all sorts of foreign tanks and drive them down and whatnot, or have, these presentations, or do something like after Operation Migration and have all these German prisoners march through Moscow, in 1944. No, I'm just saying is that at least that's the benefit of showing, hey, we're doing some shit. Whereas nowadays with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan and in Syria and, like I say, and the other conflicts that nobody really talks about, all people can do is hold up graphs and say, hey, look at this. Look at this company here because they're getting more money because, I don't know, KBR is getting more money, or I'm trying to think of it now. Halliburton is getting more money. And that's stimulating the economy. Most average people don't give a shit about big brain. I'm just gonna say big brain nigga graphs, because that's what it is. Only big brain niggas care about graphs. All right. You can't try to unite people based on a fucking graph. And this is what happens with a lot of the folks who are pro-capitalist, and they're just like, well, look at this graph here, and and you'll see that, look how much money they put in the economy here, or look at, just because you have a fucking balance sheet, that's not how people look at things. They say, how has my standard of living changed? And they'll say, not much has changed for me. Not much has changed. That's the whole idea of it. You'll have wages that have lagged behind for the past 30 or 40 years. You have infrastructure that is awful. This is both left and right. They've both talked about these things, broadly speaking. But this is why people have become more far right, or whatever the case may be, who support like socialism or support, some sort of authoritarian rule or something like that. Because the thing is that the current system doesn't really offer much. It's like, yeah, you can say whatever you want to. It's not going to change your situation unless you say enough of the right things and you get money from somebody else and then you start reading from a script. But generally speaking, people are upset by that. This is how we ended up here. There's more, though. There is more. People will bring up January 6th. And they'll say, most of the people that were at the insurrection or the riot or whichever word you want to use for it, most of those folks were rich. They came in by private jet, this and that. Yeah, because this is what is called middle class. And this is the battle back and forth, right? Especially, on the left, so to speak, where we don't want to appeal to the middle class or the upper middle class because obviously they supported Trump immensely. So we don't care about them. The middle class are just folks, they're like petite bourgeoisie. So we don't want to talk to them. They're fascists. They just want power. They're the ones that promote anti-Semitism and all this sort of thing. So we don't want to talk to them. We're going to reach out to the working class, which is not just white people. Of course, do you actually speak? Do you si habla español? No. Do you understand that some of those folks may be Catholic and everything else, right? No, they don't really care, like I say. The thing is that they'll talk all day and say, well, working class. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. Sorry. Let's go back to the point. But that kind of may segue into another point. Immigration. Now, of course, this is more of a Rush Limbaugh point, but I'll say it nonetheless. Is that before 1981, there was, laws, and even before 1965, there were laws that said, hey, when you come into this country, you have to learn English and, you have to be able to learn civics and all that. That isn't really enforced anymore. So you'll have people, and let me be very specific, you'll have folks from Central America and South America. And this is a failure of the system in general, I think. I'm not going to blame these people. I'm being very careful. I know people are going to be like, what racist thing is he going to say? I know how people are. I've seen enough videos where people like Vosh will respond. But anyway, is it, folks who speak the Spanish-speaking countries, I'll put it that way, they will go into neighborhoods and they will stay in these little areas where they don't have to leave that area and they speak Spanish and they don't have to learn English. You can say the same thing for enclaves, like Chinatown. And I know people say that's racist, or Koreatown, or whichever, right? They're these enclaves. And generally speaking, of course, they'll say, well, part of that is racism, this and that white people won't let them in. I'm sure that's an effect as well. But the thing is, though, these are enclaves. They don't speak for the whole of the nation. They don't care about voting. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about they just care about money. They just care about how much money that they can make, how much they can send back home. You say that about Indians as well. Now, of course, I know people are going to say, that's very racist of you. The thing is, though, is China just doesn't let people in willy-nilly. You can have Americans that go to China, but they're never going to have voting power. They're never going to have any say in the government. They're not Chinese, because they're not. They're not Zhongguoren. It's that simple. They're not Hanyu, more specifically. Of course, Hanyu implies that, Han Chinese, but I know Han supremacy is a meme, and everything else like that, according to the real China boos and whatnot. But anywho, I say just go with it. Just say, yeah, China is for the Han Chinese. And if you aren't Han Chinese, shut the fuck up. You know, I say just own it. But that's just me. The fact is that people can claim, oh, we love immigrants, this and that. A lot of these far left groups or even just liberal groups, they're like, oh, well, these poor migrants, this and that. The thing is, if they really talk to these folks who lived in the United States, I don't think they'd like the answers that they got about how they feel about transgenderism or how they feel about whichever, right? I really don't think they would. Maybe second or third generation, children of immigrants would be different, but first generation, bit more conservative, socially conservative maybe, but ultimately this is something that a lot of people have said, is that these, you don't have any social cohesion. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's fascist what you're saying. I know it is. And you know what? I think I'm right. I should have muted it, but I don't care. The thing is, though, is that you have to have a people who have a common understanding and have a common respect for one another. Dare I say, a common culture. It doesn't make any sense to me, the argument, the meme, and it kind of falls into the whole capitalist sort of mindset where it's just like, at least we get good tacos, at least we get good Chinese food because of migrants that come in. It's just like, not everyone cooks food. And even then, they have to be able to, have freaking, be able to, have the health inspector come in and actually pass them, you don't want people getting sick, this and that. And being able to get off the ground with enough capital to start a business. There's a lot of shit behind that. And because of that, you have crap work conditions. The thing is, if I want to bring this to a slightly more left-leaning point of view, is you'll have one group of, expats or migrants, I'll use that term. What do I say will I not be racist? But, I'm just going to be racist either way. So, where Chinese restaurants, is that filled with Chinese folks working in the back? Nope. Mayunda. The fact is that most of those restaurants, especially the ones that work in the back, it's folks from El Salvador, from Mexico, from Guatemala, whichever, right? They're the ones that work in the back. They may have Chinese folks on the floor, who are like, hello, yes, come sit down here. But the thing is, though, who's working in the back? Who's working the fryers? Who's working the folks from El Salvador, Cuba, wherever, right? That's the truth of the matter. Horrible conditions. I mean, like I say, you go into those, especially those Chinese restaurants, Chinese very, very penny pinching. I know people are going to say, oh, you're so racist. I'm saying it like it is. And that's what capitalism creates. The United States is a country arguably built on racism. So you can't really discuss the problems of the United States without discussing capitalism and racism. Now, of course, what are the real solutions, though? Now, I've been ranting and raving, but I said, and what are the solutions? Well, let's look at the left. Let's look at the mainstream broad left. The mainstream broad left is the idea that basically we just need to integrate people more. We need to abolish capitalism, or, people like Vosh say, we're not going to abolish markets, though. Just because you abolish capitalism doesn't mean we abolish markets. I don't know what world that is. That's called co, and it's called having your cake and eating it too, but that's a whole other issue. It's basically, we need better integration. We need real integration, quote unquote. And we need to still have the same framework of the United States. So, having the laws, and we need to truly make America great. I want America to be better, as people like Vosh say, right? I want America to be better. So they don't want to overthrow the system. They want reform. That's the mainline thing. The other side of that same coin, if we're going to look at the left and right as coins, we're going to look at it this way. The flip side of the left-leaning coin is the idea of, decolonization, right? The idea that once we take over, and we kill a lot of people, they don't like to say that, but that's what they mean. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it. Okay. But once... Oh, sorry. But once these things occur, the genocides and the, ditches and all that, is that then there's going to be the choice of, well, if we leave it up to the natives, if we leave it up to the indigenous people, then they can decide what they want to do. So if they want to keep white folks around, they do. But if not, you get to go back to Europe. This is what people like Jason Unruh were talking about. And of course he can cope all day and say, I didn't mean that white folks should be kicked out. I just mean that, indigenous people need to have their choice so they can decide what they want to do. It's just such a cope answer. Just own it. If you want to kick white folks out of the United States and Australia and Canada, be honest. Be honest. Don't play this bullshit like, oh, well, actually, they should just have a choice to decide if they want to kick white people out or not. And somehow, POC in the United States, black folks in the United States, and natives, or indigenous people, excuse me, they'll get along, I guess, in this mystical world, right? This LARP world where it's just like, yeah, they're going to get along. Ignore, of course, the fact that some indigenous people own black slaves too, but I know people say that's a right-wing talking point. It did happen, but it wasn't to the same degree. And boy. So that's the solution on the left. What is the solution on, let's just do this. If we're going to make this a long video, let's make it a long video. The left. That's their answer. It's either reform and better integration or kick honkies out and create, these new countries that are somehow able to compete with the rest of the world. Okay. I didn't really talk about that much, but yeah, that's basically what they want to do. All right. So there's the left coin. What's the centrist coin? What's the centrist coin? The centrist coin is we're going to acknowledge that, yeah, bad things have happened. We're going to acknowledge racism and all this sort of thing. But ultimately, we still need capitalism. We still need capitalism. We still need this. Now, of course, like I say, this kind of goes against the... Actually, you know what? I think with the true centrist position, if you want to see it as that, is more of a third positionist view. The idea that, well, we acknowledge racism, this and that, and maybe we can talk about autonomy. The idea that, well, white folks should be here, black folks should be here, melanated people, however way you want to say it, Hispanos here, Asians over here, Indians over here. And we're going to create separate states and have balkanization. I think that's a true centrist position, to realize that, yeah, racism has occurred. And whatever form of economics that you want, go ahead and have. So if you want to have a free market neoliberal system, you can do that. If you want to have an autarkic system, you can have that. If you want market socialist, what's the difference between free market and market socialist? You tell me. Tell me how that worked out for Yugoslavia. But I know people will cope and say that's not real market socialism. And let individual groups decide what they want to do. The far right position. I would say that the far right position would be possibly theocracy. I think that even in the centrist, more third positionist position would be to allow religion on some level. The far left would be some religion that we approve of, but not Christianity because it's bad. That's their view. Far right position, I would think, would be, Christianity, maybe like a Deus Vult point, but we still need capitalism. We still need capitalism, bro, and all this sort of thing. See, this is the whole thing. The political compass has destroyed so many people's image of what actually left and right is. Because, like I say, and people have said this, I've said it as well, these labels are pointless. But we do it because we're lazy, because it's just easier. And they'll label the U.S. Constitution as left. I saw a video from good old Justin King. I know. It's been a while since I talked about him. And he said that the Constitution and that the Bill of Rights is left-wing. And I said, like I say, this is the whole matter, right? Where this is the problem with ideology, where they'll label people as this, and they'll say basically they're on our side. They were on our side. So I guess that they would say people like, James Madison was left-wing, or, whoever else, they were actually left-wing. Libertarians will say, no, they're on our side, or, it's just pitiful bullshit. But the thing is, though, to me, that's what the far right would be. And they would allow black folks and Hispanos and everything else like that in. They would allow them in. But it would be, much more on a you have to obey the law type of rule. Like I say, there are many other reasons why the U.S. ended up the way it has, and the perceived solutions on both the, on the left, the center, and the right. These are all my opinion. And I know people are going to say, I know someone's going to see this. Someone's going to see this in the future and say, you're absolutely wrong. And you know what I'll say? Yeah, I probably am. But you know what? That's my opinion. I'm not advocating for anything specifically. I'm just going to say is that this is the way things go. See, the thing is, I'm going to abbreviate what a lot of people have said before, but I'll say it here, is people will say, I don't like violence, and we don't promote violence on this YouTube channel. Okay. You know what I'll say to that? I'll say, yeah, I don't like violence against me, but I understand that violence is going to happen. To the judge. All right. But violence is going to happen regardless. We see an economy that is stagnated. We see a society that is kind of gone numb. And of course you bring up, there's so many factors that you could bring up, but I think a lot of it is we're trying to have this war, this trade war, quote unquote, with China. It's not really a war, though, because ultimately the Chinese have won. Because you can go ahead and say, oh, well, we're putting plants in Arizona or this and that. No, the fact is that China won. I don't even say that like I'm a China boo. I say China is what it is, as I've always said. Is that China is for the Han Chinese. It is to hold up traditional Chinese values, whatever that means, whatever you want it to mean. And the fact is that the Chinese have won because capitalism allowed them to win. But I think that in general, the left and the right are united in promoting hatred and yellow peril-esque demonization of China. Now, of course, they'll say, no, we don't hate Chinese people. We just hate the government. We just hate the government. And, of course, then you'll say, well, don't the Chinese people like the government? So, and they back up off it. But the thing is, though, that yellow peril is there. Now, in my opinion, with third positionists, I think the smarter ones in the center would be willing to work with China and say, yeah, Well, we acknowledge that. We say Deutsche nie. We acknowledge that China has returned to its proper place after 100 years of humiliation, and we respect China for what they have done. And we are glad that the Chinese people are once again helping move civilization forward. Now, balancing that out, I know people will say, that's pretty cookie, bro. And yeah, it is. But it's also a sense of, okay, let's start from there and acknowledge what China has done. And if China can acknowledge what the United States as a whole has done, then maybe the centrists, the third positionists, would be willing to be like, hey, this is what we believe. This is what we want to try to hold on to. Maybe a form of Christianity. Trying to at least have a respect for Islam, have a respect for religions in general, but understanding that people are different and that we need a social cohesion that exists. That doesn't mean hatred. It just means a difference of opinion and a difference of how governance should work and how, jobs should work, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know people are going to say, this is all bullshit what you're saying. It's never worked that way. I know. But it's my fantasy. If you don't like it, get out. But I feel that if things were better off, this is how they would be. I think that's all I have to say on that. Ultimately, I think both the left and the right, if we want to look at it that way, are both groups that just want things to go back the way they were. They want to go back to a strong United States. The left in the United States wants stronger unions. They want unions to be back as strong as they were, generally speaking, at least the mainstream left. The more decolonization left wants Whitey to leave so that they can go back to native lands and everything else. They want to return to that. The far right wants to go back in time as well to say, yeah, we need to have, we need to go back to the 1950s, ignoring, of course, the fact that huge divorce rate. Hold on. Let me finish this up, but just give me a moment. I'm going to just let it roll. Okay. Hopefully that's a little bit better. But the far right, we just want to go back to the 50s. We want to be able to do all these things. We want to, go back to the strong U.S. economy and everything else with protectionism and all that. Yeah. So that we weren't cucked to China. This is the kind of the secret deal that goes on. Now, is that horseshoe theory? No. Because ultimately, the right wants more of a traditionalist, white supremacist notion. Now, like I say, this is something that TRS folks have brought up, and I do think that to a point it's correct. Is that the Second World War in Europe was white supremacist U.S. versus the white nationalist Germany. You know what? I'm going to stop right there because that's a lot of cringe. But you know what? That's how I feel. The fact is that this country is going down a path, and there's a fork in the road right now. There's a fork in the road, and people are going to try to have to figure out where they want to go. Do they simply want to go down the reformist path? Do they want to go down the let's do things back the way things used to be? Or there's also the third way. Balkanization. A peaceful separation where people can decide where they want to go and can decide what they want to do. That, to me, is the true future of the United States. Now, to me, you want my opinion about it, is balkanization probably won't happen. I think that ultimately the United States will choose reform, more of the mainstream left reform, where we accept more people and we try to provide a real integrationist solution. And the folks who are far right and all that sort of thing, who are extremists, those folks will be arrested. The third positionists, I think the folks that are in the center, I think will end up dissipating. Some may give into the system, others will maybe leave, this and that, I don't know. But I think that we see we're going to, the revolution is happening right now. That's what people need to realize. The revolution is against you. The revolution is against you. The revolution that we can accept more people, but we're going to maintain honkies at the top. It's just going to be more hidden. But the front-facing thing will be is that we have more Indians. We're going to have more POC representation, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact is, though, is they're not the real leaders. It's just going to be a certain group of white folks that do that. I'm going to be very careful about what I really mean, but you know what? You can read between the lines. Anywho, that was a long bit of rant, but I do think it's worth saying about how we ended up here and what are the solutions and what I think will really happen versus what I think should happen. Those are two different things. Anywho, hopefully y'all enjoyed that. See you later. Goodbye.